Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Borderwise and welcome back, at long last, to From the Depths, the subscriber craft review. And just a quick note for everybody who's new to this series, because it's been a while since I've uploaded one of these. Submissions are closed. I'm not accepting any more of these things. I'm just working through the list I've got now. And then once the list is done, we can all move on to other things, fun things. So sorry about that. And oh yes, a note to everyone who has submitted a craft on this list. One of two things need to happen. You need to make sure that your craft is as up to date as you want it to be for the review list. Because if you have not updated it, if it's not updated to the point where you want it, and I review it and it doesn't work at all, that's on you, not me. And secondly, if you don't feel like updating it, you can let me know if you don't want to be embarrassed in front of the old internet with a craft that isn't compatible with all the latest patches. I can take it off the list for you, that's all good, so please let me know which one you would prefer, the update or striking off the list, because we can do either, we're easy like that. But anyway, that's the news for now, and so what you're looking at right now is a delightfully Battleship type thing, which I'm quite fond of actually. I'll say that immediately. I quite like this thing. This is the, and it has a long name, so get my notes up here. This is the LGEX HB7 or XII dash Daybreaker by Chieftain, and it's a pretty decent craft really, and it's got a cool name and all that stuff, and it's a battleship. Like, when a lot of people first get From the Depths or first see it or hear it, well, it's something like this that people tend to dream of making. It's just a big battleship, World War II style. Back in the days when, well, World War II, World War I style I guess, but back in the days when ships were ships, they were armored and they had big guns on them, and it was just, whoa, just really, really swell and all that. So, what is this thing? Well, it's huge for one thing. You remember way back in the day, I set some rules for this whole subscriber craft review thing, and this is right on the edge of that, I have to say. It is exactly 30,000 blocks, so Chieftain, you get a biscuit for staying within the rules and being a good sport. I remember Chieftain contacted me and saying, like, please, can it just be a little few blocks over? And I said, no, the rules apply to everyone. And he said, okay, and then he submitted this thing, and it is exactly 30,000 blocks, for which I'm thankful for, because even though it's huge, it's over 300 meters long, it doesn't lag my machine too much, even when it's fighting other craft, and I am thankful for that. She's also quite an expensive girl. It is 831,271 materials. And bearing in mind that this is the cut down version, so I think the real version of the Daybreaker is like 30,000 and something blocks rather than exactly 30,000. This is technically an incomplete craft right here, so any criticism I make, well, not any criticism, a lot of the criticisms I'm about to make, because, spoiler alert, there's a lot of them, do remember that this Chieftain did dial down the block count on this thing just for me, which I am very grateful for. So, what is this thing? It's a very big battleship. It is 30k blocks, and what's good about this thing? What do I like? Well, for a start, it's very pretty. As I've said before, I cannot build aesthetic craft for peanuts, but I always appreciate people who can, because it's something I don't know, it never occurs to me to even try, and I guess I could try. I could work at it, but I just never remember to. But this is a pretty craft. You see it's got these chains here, done with mimics, I believe. It's got an anchor there, and another one over there. It's got all kinds of fun stuff. It's got this little thing, I don't even know what this is, but it's very cool, I like it. And it's got superstructure, it's got nice laid out, and it's well shaped without being overly extravagant, and the amazing thing is, it's very sparing on the paint. It's got red underside, but that's about it really. And I'm a little bit, oh yeah, it's got a little bit of black on the front. I believe this is, let's see, this is colored with paint 31, so that's fleet colors right here. And this, I believe, is colored with paint number 1, so yeah. So there's a little bit of black, border-wise brand black along the sides, and I think it looks very good. It's like, doesn't look particularly sci-fi, which is absolutely fine. A lot of people get into this game for wanting to build like World War I, World War II, just general historical-looking craft. And that's absolutely cool. So I like the way this looks. It looks very nice. I could not build something like this if my life depended on it. You see how the turrets are shaped. They actually look like proper turrets. Secondary guns here. And just, yeah, very pretty. Also, it has big guns, and a lot of them. It has big guns, and it cannot lie. It has 12 500mm Hesh guns in 3 turrets. So there's one, there's 2, and another one in 3. The 3 turret setup, very... very Battleship-like. I'm not an expert on, like, historical battleships by any means, but I am aware that the 3 big turret design is something a lot of them used. And so these are railguns, I should mention. So if we go here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So lots of railguns, lots of charges, lots of ammo below decks. So we got, what is this thing? The magnet. So modest railgun settings. So if we go here, access the intakes. This is, well, it's not exactly a pure Hesh shell, as I would call it, because 394 meters per second. It's still pretty quick. Got a blaze bleeder, arguably unnecessary, but I find this does make the shell slightly smaller, which means it uses less ammo and has better reload, so that's fine. It's got the HE warhead body in here is set slightly lower than the default special factor, which means it still has a little bit of boom to it, rather than just being a pure squash head. So that's fine. Any of these shells hurt when they hit things, like, can't complain on that front. And, oh yeah, I forgot to check the railgun settings on this. So the railgun, it uses... Railgun speed increased by 175 meters per second. So these are fast shells. So what the hell? Loaded shell base speed is 600 meters per second. So fast shells. Very fast. I really need to start playing around with railguns one of these days. It's one of those things I keep overlooking. But, yeah, so it's got big guns, big scary guns on it. It's got 4 174mm disruptor guns in 2 turrets, so that's this one here, and this one here, 2 guns each, and disruptor guns, this is the shell. It's a pretty standard looking disruptor thing, really. It's got disruptor, EMP warheads, base bleeder, not particularly strong, and more on that later. But, yeah, it's got those, so it can pop shields. And then it has, what's it? What on earth am I looking at? So... Oh, yes, so 7... What the hell? Oh, I skipped over one. It has 12 118mm Hesh secondaries on the side here in 12 turrets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here they are, 118mm, and this is just a straight up pure squash head. I say pure, like the special factor isn't all the way up to 1. So let's go, where's it? 1. Is that the right gauge? Yes, it is. So, not incredibly powerful, but it just spits out lots of them, and Hesh is effective at many different gauges, so that's pretty cool. Ooh, I can fire these things. Interesting. What fun. Okay, and to top it all off, it's got 7 60mm Hesh front and back turrets, and I think one of them just got shot in the back of the head. But that's okay. Didn't matter that much, so here we have similar thing, and that's, I believe, the exact same shell. So, go here. Again, very weak shell. Very weak, in fact. But, yeah, so it's got lots of little guns. And it's got thick armor, I should mention that right now. So, at its thinnest, which is around here, the armor is about 3 meters thick. So 1, 2, 3, and that's it. So 3 meters of metal, which is already pretty thick armor. So, and once you get over to guns, it gets a little bit ridiculous, actually. So here we have, what are we looking at? Forward ammo compartment. So we've got 1, 2, 3 layers of metal, and then heavy armor slope, layer of heavy armor, and then there is the ammo itself, and fully wrapped in heavy armor, by the way, which is... you get a cookie for that one, Chieftain, because a lot of people forget to do that, and so they tend to have heavy armor compartments getting hollowed out from underneath, because explosions hit here, they take out the metal blocks all the way underneath, and they just blow up things from underneath. But not fully wrapped, so very hard to destroy. And over here, once we get to where the main turrets are, the armor gets really thick. So 1, 2, 3 layers of metal, 1, 2 layers of heavy armor, air gap, and then here we are at the turret itself. And even looks good on the inside, so nice and round. Doesn't look like my ones, which are hexagonal nightmares. Or rather, more like diamond shapes than anything else. So, very thick armor. This craft takes bloody ages to kill, even if you use specialized anti-armor weaponry. And the deck, I should mention. So here we have a metal beam over here. It's just one layer of metal, which is fine for deck armor for the most part. Mostly because a lot of shots tend to come in at sharp angles on the deck, and the armor stacking works widthways. So decks don't need to be particularly thick. And for the rest of the deck, it has a double whammy of metal and reinforced wood. So it's got a very strong deck too. This is almost overkill. Like, a double layer of wood is usually enough for most decks. Like, you ever fought an iron cordon, like, the deck is actually quite hard to destroy, even though it's just a single layer of wood. But yeah, so, and it's got air gaps all the way through it. So you see I breeze through here. Aha, there's an air gap. Well, admittedly, this is a turret space, but still. So here, air gaps, lots of air gaps all over the place. And so this thing is kind of pretty resistant to heat and hair shells. It's not completely proof against them, but it's just trying to kill this thing with heat is a pain in the butt, because a heat shell comes in here, boop, and it penetrates. And here's a big air gap. It might shred a turret or little air pocket, but nah, it's not going to work. It even has slopes inside, so if a heat shell hits here, for instance, the fragments are likely to just do reduced damage against these slopes. Rather cunning. And it's also got a little detection turret right here. So, and I keep forgetting that this is a cool thing you can do with turrets, is to put ERA all the way around them, make them nice and round. That is so cute and lovely. I wish I could remember to do that. I just like, yeah, this thing is just well-rounded. I need to look at this thing in my own time, because I have trouble rounding out superstructure like this. It all looks a little bit too blocky when I do it. So yeah, it's got a lot of guns, it's got a lot of armor. It's actually quite a simple craft. It's very big, but the design, once you look at, excuse you, come on. There's actually not much in it. So here you have steam engines. It's propelled by steam props, by the way. It's got big rudders on the back. And it's got the steam, and there's a turret. And there's another turret, and there's a whole bunch of batteries for the railguns, material storage, some engines. I'm not entirely sure about these engines, by the way. Like, actually, no, I just realized these engines are kind of crap, because you don't want to mix superchargers, injectors, and turbochargers. It doesn't work, so I've gotten ahead of myself. I've got to make a note on the engines. Not good engines. You could easily fit more powerful and more efficient ones in here. So, yeah, there's the engines. There's lots of secondary turrets and lots of ammo right here in the middle, which I thought was kind of dumb when I first saw it, because aimpoint spoofing. The thing has so much armor around here that you're gonna be shooting at this part of it for ages. So, like, once you start building craft this big, like, you can get away with certain design mechanics that otherwise would be a pretty terrible idea. So there's ammo, and there's some ammo processors, little air pumps all over the place, which, more on that later. Short answer is that's not a good idea, it's not necessary. And more turret, and it's got lots of repair bots, and here's AI, all the AI in one place, which on the one hand is not a good idea if this spot gets hit, but on the other hand it makes it very easy for me to find them, so appreciate that. Lots of ammo processors, more material storage, all that jazz, and here's even more ammo, lots of props underneath. It runs on PIDs, air pumps, turning props, decoration, more guns. So yeah, it's actually pretty simple design in here, really. It probably took ages to make, so I'm not knocking it on that front. But yeah, it's just It's pretty straightforward. It's not incredibly complex, it's not incredibly fancy, it's a ship with stuff in it. Okay, so on that note, that's all I like about this craft. Now we have a long list of problems with it. So, to start off with, turret restrictions are important. So you'll notice that turning these turrets all the way around, now I'm turning the other way, they're stuck like that. So always remember with your craft to put turret restrictions on, because otherwise they get stuck on the craft like this, they get stuck facing the other way. In my testing against, for the record, before anyone accuses me of being too smug, I have nothing in my current repertoire of craft that can take this thing one-on-one. My most expensive craft is only around 200,000 materials, so this thing is 4 times as expensive and 3 times as big as my largest craft, so there's nothing I have that can take this one-on-one in a fair fight. But I tested against a lot of my craft, and this thing, logically, considering its size and cost, should have destroyed them immediately, like no contest, except the fight went on for ages because, starting facing around, my craft just orbited around and then got behind it, and then got on one side, and half the guns were pointing the wrong way. Well, 2 of the main guns were pointing the wrong way, and just the whole fight was extended for quite an artificially long time. So, yeah, turret restrictions, good idea. And for the those who don't know, you enable them like this. You go on the turret or the firing piece, and you just do this. So on this particular little gun, I've also fixing the required accuracy before fire is a good idea. This thing tends to miss shots it really shouldn't. And now that one gun has correct turret restrictions. So if I do that on the turret itself, you'll see it won't... 1, 2, 3, 4... Such a big ship, such a big fat ship. Also, like, reinforced wood at the moment is a bit of a pain in the ass because you can't make it transparent like you can with other things. That's a texture glitch. There's not really much you can do about that. Whoops. Oh god, oh god. There we go. There we go. Minimum. Oh, hello. This thing already has turret restrictions. Say, what? This one doesn't, though. Huh, what happened here? Oh, it had them, but they didn't get saved. Interesting. Well, that's something you want to perhaps think about, Chieftain, is that you remembered to put the turret restrictions on, but for whatever reason they didn't save, so that's weird. So strike that off, I guess. And another thing is that remembering that this is the shaved down block count version of a craft which is actually even got even more stuff in it, there's a lot of wasted space in here. So, yeah, I guess you can argue it's for buoyancy and all that, but this ship needs so many PID propellers holding it up on the water anyway. Like, it's arguably not even worth it to have this much empty space in here. And you just see as I travel throughout the whole... What's in here? More stuff. So as I travel throughout the ship, it's just lots of empty space. Here, there, and everywhere. Just... Like this, this wooden wall, arguably doesn't even need to be here. It's just wasted blocks. Like, lots of wasted space in here. That's a turret. More turret, more turret, more turret. And, like, lots of wasted space in here. And, like, this is a problem with building anything big, and I've done this myself, to my shame. In here, lots of wasted space. This, like, you could cramp this up a little bit more. Or at least you could in theory. It can be quite difficult to do that. Lots of heavy armor. Almost excessive amounts of heavy armor. Again, here's more. I guess you could say that this is just air gaps for buoyancy and protection against heat and hash. This is a little bit excessive, it feels like, in here as well. Just, it is so much wasted space. Like, you could pile these engines on top of each other, and you could cut this compartment alone pretty much in half in terms of length and make the whole thing much shorter. Over here, lots more wasted space. There's a turret. This huge gap in here, which, like, doesn't need to exist, except there's a turret right above it. So, yeah, there's that, and all this stuff. And, like, building with lots of space in it has its advantages, but the space needs to be in the right place. if you look at Onyx Watchcraft, they use space very well because they have all their internals inside in a little citadel and just large compartments like surrounding that inner citadel, and air gaps actually make pretty good armor just due to sheer size. This is not a case of that. This has gaps in the middle, which is arguably useless. And here, worst defender, this wall doesn't even need to be in here. It's just massive space in here. And also massive space in here. And just, you could cramp this whole thing up. In fact, you could shear, like, I don't know. You don't want craft to have too much empty space because it means you have structural blocks that do nothing except make the craft big, and arguably that's, well, it's just a waste of blocks, really. I'm not saying this thing is a waste of blocks. From the outside it looks great, but from the inside there's just more that can be done with it. And remembering, I think there was something like a LAM system and all that stuff in there. Actually, I think this was possibly way more detailed as well. You can see that this looks as if it had some quite a bit of blocks cleared out of it. It just looks like it should be more populated. But anyway, so another thing is that, speaking of space, the turret Tetris is not great. See, oh, stop it. Stop it. Okay, so, the turret Tetris. Now, my buddy Awelner will look at the secondary guns and he will possibly disintegrate with annoyance because he hates autoloader only guns, and I don't react that strongly to them, but this is not great. Like, this is, what have you got here? This is a 3x3 gun and it's got a bit of armor on the front. It's interesting, these are half armored turrets, so I say always remember to armor your turrets. This is something that you can kind of get away with if you want to. This is half armored turrets, so what this is it's got armored on the front, so the idea is this thing points towards the enemy, and this bit faces towards the back, and that's all good. That tends to fail if the turret is disabled for some reason, like if EMP takes out the local weapon controller, then it faces the wrong way, it gets shredded. But yeah, so that isn't a huge biggie, at least it has some armor on it. However, this is not good turret Tetris, I'm sorry to say, because it's pure autoloader and that's not necessary. Autoloader only guns are useful if you have space constraints, so if you want to jam a certain kind of gun into a small space and you don't have the room to attach clips to absolutely everything, then you just go autoloader only and that is fine. But this, you don't need that. In fact, you could turn this into a belt feeder or just with clips very easily. So if we go here, for instance, what you can do is something like this. Stick that there, and without using any more room, you can do that. And now what we have is this. Let's see, are you gonna load? There we go. So what we have there, we have a much more efficient little setup because you will have enough autoloaders to get your kind of the right fire rate, but it's more efficient because when crafts spawn in, ammo clips are filled for free, so it's essentially free ammo. If they're all in autoloaders, they all have to load immediately from the ship's main ammo reserves, and that's a lot of ammunition that's just devoured immediately and unnecessarily. So clips are actually a pretty good idea. Autoloader only is only if you want to keep guns small and keep them nice and compact, and also if you're feeling lazy, which possibly was what happened here. In any case, add clips, especially if it's like this, it'll be really simple, and you could even around here, you could just do this all the way down here, then let's see, 1, 2, 3, you could do something like this. Same story. 1, 2, 3. Whoop. Whoop. And whoop. And there you go. That's this thing will have a lot more ammo, and we'll be able to keep firing a lot better because also receiving autoloaders with no ammo clips attached they have a 50% penalty to loading time, so it's actually very inefficient to use anything more than 8 autoloaders. I had people do the math for me on that one. More than 8 autoloaders, and you need to start using clips. So, there is that. And lots of waste of space in the hull, I've talked about that. Not great turret Tetris, so if we go back on the main craft and make everything go transparent again. God, I love that tool. I forget who told me that trick, but I love you, whoever you are. So you see here in the turret, it's not flawless use of space, which, like, and it also uses 6-way connectors. Boo! Get boo! Like, you really only need to use 6-way connectors for APS if you absolutely have no other choice. If you have any choice at all, just use the GiantSnake. It's much more efficient. And you see there's odd holes in here that, by the way, is filled with armor. So here you have some hydraulic recoil absorbers, and in the middle here you have metal beams. Arguably that is a complete waste, because metal beams on the inside here aren't doing anything useful. Because if anything is, if damage has gotten this far, the turret's been popped already, so there's really no point. You could fill this with wood and it would do just as much good. So let me do this actually. Whoop, whoop. So this is what you see, it's in here. Just the space is filled with just structural blocks. Not a good idea. Not a good idea at all, really. It is armored all the way around, so that's a good thing right there. But also, you see here, there is a lot of wasted space. Like, if you do your turret treacherous good, what you could do is you could basically have the turret actually touching the edges here, and it should be able to spin all the way around. This turret does not do that, therefore, no, not as space efficient as it could be. And APS Tetris is hard, rotational symmetry is your friend, and so there is that. And you might be noticing this thing isn't moving around a lot, and, well, I don't know which patch it was, or whether it's the ACBs controlling the steam props not working properly, but this thing doesn't move right.
Form up and fly with
So I tell it to go over here, and we can hit path. So it's trying to go there, it's not moving at all. It's turning, and those large rudders are absolutely fantastic, and I need to start using them. But it can't move. So what I think is causing that is that the ACBs, well, as I said, the ACBs controlling the steam props aren't working properly. So I really should have tried this off camera, but I'm going to go tweak the ACBs there and see if that works. So here are the steam, these are probably a lot bigger than they need to be as well. I don't know steam engines very well. But if we go over here, you will see that there are ACBs controlling this thing. So what do we have here? So it's set to vehicle speed rather than propulsion commands. So if we go here, set burn rate to 5%. If view control, straight propulsion. If propulsion command is none, set burn rate to 5%. If propulsion command is forward, set burn rate to 100%. Executing. So will that do the trick? I do not know. I do not know if that worked. I think these things are still pretty buggy, really. Is that doing it? Nope, it isn't doing it. Let's see. What is it for? I think there's another ACB in here somewhere. I shouldn't be doing this right now. It's not my job to fix ships that come in, but I can't resist because, I know. Hello? Seems like they're not connected for some reason. I don't know what's going on here, but for whatever reason, these steam props do not work. Force applied 0. What is this? But the interesting thing is, if you hit pusher preset, like, these things work briefly, but I don't know what's going on here. So in any case, it's a bit of a problem when this craft can't drive forward. And moving on, this craft has an over-reliance on hash, so... Hash, as in squash hit. So these little secondary guns are hash, the main guns are hash, these the guns on the side are hash, these are hash, lots of hash, and that's understandable. Whoa, you were turning quite fast actually, big rudders. But firstly, like, just on a personal note, that's a little bit boring to rely so much on hash. And on the other hand, like, against a faction craft, like craft in the NATO campaign, that will work absolutely fine, because pretty much none of them are designed with powerful hash in mind. But one of these days, hash is going to get nerfed, and against a craft which actually do have spore liners, as in soft material on the inside that causes hash fragments to spawn with low AP, this craft will not do as well as it otherwise would. But at the moment, hash is overpowered. Just keep that in mind, is that hash is due for a nerf any day now. I don't know if it's actually coming, but it probably is, because it's just ridiculously strong right now. It also has no AA to speak of, so no anti-air. That's not a huge problem, because as you'll notice that every single turret pretty much has a AA mantle. It's 2 meters, so this thing can aim straight up. Except for, yeah, these guys as well. So if I do something radically bad, something like, oh, I don't know, spawning in a Hypatos, or let's spawn in a Palladium. Let us do that, and let's see what happens. What's it? Scarlet Dawn, regular, Clustercraft, Expert, Palladium. Can you even handle it? It also has no laser defense, I forgot about that. So it can shoot straight up in the air, I should mention. Hang on, pause that. But that being said, small fast craft, it does have a bit of trouble with. Palladium is going to be no problem at all, by the looks of it. Yep, it's going to get fried horribly. That's one way to deal with satellites. Shoot straight up. Boom. Sorry, I'm just enjoying this. I hate the Palladium. It's really annoying if you're not, if you don't prepare for it. Also, very fast repair rate on this. Okay, enough of that. Let's spawn in something that is actually very fast. Let's go here. What is fast? It's very fast. It's small and annoying. Let's spawn in... Yeah, a Gannet. Let's see how long it takes for you to shoot this guy down. So this is one of those things where it makes up... Okay, that might actually be a problem. Because the Gannet is flying in a much straighter line than I remember. Okay, I'm full of rubbish. The anti-air works perfectly fine. Because apparently, I do like the new Gannet though. Okay, stop that. You're gonna make me sick. Hypatos. This is the last chance. Things that move very fast in curves. Meow. Hello. Am I going crazy, or are you not moving properly? What the? The Hypatos is broken. Okay, never mind. Anti-air is good. I'm full of rubbish. Okay, so what it does not have is a counter to submarines. And am I going to be proven horribly wrong on this? Am I going to be proven wrong on this as well? Am I gonna be crazy? Where's the Typhoon? There it is. I think it does have a wireless snooper somewhere. But I don't think it has any sonar. Oh my god, you're killing the frickin'... It's hard to find flaws with a craft when it's so big it can just get away with stuff it shouldn't be able to. Where'd the Typhoon even go? You spit enough shells at something, it can work. Also, it has a problem is that because it's got AA mantlets on absolutely everything, it doesn't aim down very well. So assuming that Typhoon survives long enough to get close, this ship will have a really bad time. It does look really cool. Just looking at that, this might be the thumbnail right here. Don't usually do that, but yeah, that looks sexy. That looks sexy and cool. In any case, so it's helpless against submarines, except not really, because it's still winning. Like, I don't know. What do you want from me? When craft get this big, they can cheat. Large because I think it's just spitting out so many shells it's hitting the Typhoon by accident. But yeah, not a great... Where is the thing? Here it is. You see? This is the Oh boy, you spit enough stuff at a submarine, you'll hit it by accident. I guess I could just say it's not efficient? Oh well. Anywho, so not great against submarines, although apparently it can handle them just fine. I'm just curious. I didn't check ahead of time what this has, so... Lots of that. This thing doesn't have any sonar at all, and yet... Oh yeah, it hasn't... Okay. Huh, it doesn't even have adjusted detection. That's weird. Has IR cameras. I think it's just due to the laser rangefinder on it that it's able to spot submarines, because these things can see through water, which I guess is pretty neat. So, what is it? It does also shoot itself, so if you spawn something, say, right here, so if I go here and spawn something like, not craft. Where is the... Spawn something that'll get... that is fast and annoying. This thing's fast and annoying, and also it'll die very quickly. So if I go there... You'll notice that, they did shoot itself right in the back with these turrets. I was about to say, holy crap, that little thing was about to get away. No, it wasn't. What am I talking about? Yeah, I'm full of nonsense about the AA. If you spit enough shells at something, that counts as flak. Anyway. It does shoot itself, simply because it has guns facing on the line. These things are devils for that. It has no active defenses, so it doesn't have shields, it doesn't have laser munition defense or anything like that, so if something gets fired at it, it can't stop it before it hits the armor. It doesn't have great aim point spoofing, but as I said before, the ammo is just behind layers and layers of armor, so that's not a huge issue, and aim point spoofing isn't incredibly helpful with ships this big anyway. Well, it is. It's well below the waterline. And what else? So... On the note of the ammunition types, Hesh is not great at the small gauges, so I would use frag if I were you. So just use frag, and if you have it with timed shells as well, it would be much better AA than it currently is. Like, it's still decent, better than I would have thought, but still it could be better. Or even just pure kinetic, that could work well. And also Hesh, admittedly these things do hurt like hell if they hit something. Hesh is not great at max gauge, it's just, it doesn't scale up very well. It's a medium to almost large kind of shell. So if you go here, what really works well at this gauge is something like this. So here you have this, and you have this, and you have... what size is this? If I change this to gunpowder... okay, that is much faster. And then you have a hollow point head. Now this is a scary shell. Hollow point high explosive is really terrifying. So this is not a particularly big shell, it's only 3 meters long, but does 14,000 kinetic damage, and with the hollow point that's thump, and 3,000 high explosive. That hurts like hell, and it's also better on the frame rate because it doesn't spawn lots of little fragments. So that's an idea right there, and disruptors as well are best at large gauges. So if you go here, you go to this disruptor conduit, it's at 173, was it? Yeah, it was. So this is nothing. It'll take an awful lot of these shells to destroy even a medium strength shield. But if you scale this up to 500, there we go, that's cooking with gas. So remember, this is the usual guideline with so-called chemical shells, so EMP or high explosive or flak. They're better at about 450 to 500 in terms of gauge. And anything below 450, best not to use chemical shells. You're better off using kinetic shells. And by that I mean frag or solid or sabot and stuff like that. So, there is that. Not optimized shell choices, although I have to admit they still do work. And this thing isn't moving right now. Keep an eye on the resource counter. Admittedly, I have messed with an ACB right now, so actually, let's destroy this. And spawn it in again. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. Daybreaker, 30,000 blocks. Here we go. Here you are. Here you are. So let's jump on you. So let's get some resources in there, and then I turn it off. This thing eats materials like crazy. Like, admittedly, partially because it needs to reload all its guns, and it runs out of ammunition immediately upon spawning in, thanks to these autoloader heavy guns. But yeah, it eats through materials like mad. In my tests, it easily was eating through thousands and thousands of bucks of material every time, which isn't great. Material efficiency is actually very important for craft. If it's eating materials, it should be because it's gaining them back just as fast, or it's killing things very quickly. And as a whole, this craft doesn't kill things as fast as it should, considering its cost. And so, yeah, it also eats a lot in repairs. Like, how many repair bots has this thing had? I didn't actually count. It has a lot. So over here you have a lot of repair bots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 14 right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 14. That's 28 already over there. It has more scattered throughout the ship. So it has over here some stuff. It's got, where is it? There's some more. There's one. There's one right there. There's, yep, here's 10 more just in the middle here. So it has a lot of repair bots. Which, on the one hand, if you want a big ship to repair itself at any kind of reasonable rate, you do need a few more than usual. But that many is, that is a recipe for just repairing blocks that'll get destroyed immediately. It is very wasteful in terms of materials. And you'll notice in this little menu here that I made a version, well, I just stripped all the repair bots off the thing just to see how it would do. It does so much worse. It does not great for a ship of this cost. If it's getting anywhere close to 1 million materials, this thing should be invincible. And it's not. It is not even close. It's like, it suffers a lot of damage when fighting things. It just, needlessly, if you ask me, like, something this big should be able to stomp things less expensive than it while taking virtually no damage in return, and that's not the case here. But then again, I think this is mostly an aesthetic build, which means it's kind of not a huge biggie in that case. But I did test it against a number of things, some of my craft and some faction craft. And the test against the tier, and I will spawn the tier just here. That rhymed. I'll spawn the tier just here. I'm saying it right. I hope you're happy. Let's see here. My team, built-in, Nader. And yes, I still have a bit of a fascination with the tier. It is not the most formidable craft in the game. It's not the most optimized craft either. But it's just a decent yardstick for battleships, like big scary things. So let's go here, disable movement. I don't want you to go anywhere. So, yeah, so the Daybreaker is twice as many blocks as the tier, and given the disparity in cost, so this is 800,000 materials, this is 500,000. You would expect, or want to expect, the Daybreaker just to curb stomp the tier completely, especially considering this is not bound by rules of faction craft, and this is. It was a very close fight, both times. So, the Daybreaker won, by the way, simply because it's so big, the tier wasted too much time chewing through the hull, and the guns were fine. But, really, a fight between two craft that have such disparity in cost and size should be over very, very quickly, and it just was not one-sided enough. And I tested it without repair bots as well, and the fight was even for about 20 minutes, and then the tier lost, but it was like almost 100,000 materials lost in terms of just ammunition and steam, really. So yeah, not an optimized craft, I have to say, but then again also technically not complete, the version I have right here. So, yeah, okay, so tier, you go away now. You get out of here, and then I'll blow you up. Awesome as you look. And it also has, well, I've not mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again, just because. This thing has too many air pumps. Excuse you. I said this thing has too many air pumps. So, look here, there, and everywhere. I've seen this kind of thing before. Like, you just have air pumps in tiny little compartments here. This is not necessary. This is just not, no. Sorry. So you could easily just, I know that this is something to like, as a kind of guard against things, against compartments being ruptured. But honestly, you could get rid of these beams right here. So let's see. If I get rid of you, and I can get rid of you as well. If I get rid of you, I can get rid of you, and get rid of you, get rid of you, and that's halfway down the ship already, so I'm not nearly halfway. Then in a sense, lots of small compartments are not as good as fewer medium-sized ones. Like, the compartments can't be too big, but still, like, there is such a thing as too many air pumps. It's just needless, it's a waste of blocks. So here, and let's see, here, 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 here. Okay, you might want to plug that hole a bit better. Here, and this thing, you can use one air pump for this whole cavity right here. It's like, you can do that, and with the amount of PIDs this thing has, it's hard to sink anyway. So excessive air pumps, just not good. It's dependent more on the space you have the air pump in than how many air pumps you have, rather. That made no sense. And what's it? On the guns! Again, aesthetically, it has the heavy barrels at the back. It has normal barrels at the front. Arguably not the best way to use them. In my own experiments, what I've found works well, and by the way, is to, if you're going to use heavy barrels, there's an art to it. So you can't just spam heavy barrels, because that is one thing that's expensive and heavy, but also because if you have them like this, the firing pieces are still at risk. Admittedly, this is right behind heavy armor, which, these turrets are very hard to destroy, by the way. That's a bit of a pro. Like, normally I would say don't use exposed heavy armor on your turrets, it doesn't work very well. In this case, it works surprisingly well. I have seen HESH shells hit the top of these things and do absolutely nothing. So, these turret caps are not easy to blow up at all. But still, it's just very heavy and expensive. But if you want to use heavy barrels, don't put them like this, because when these normal barrels get sheared off, that's, well, these things are mostly just useless. Although I guess in this case it's just to plug this hole. So you have heavy armor there, you have heavy barrel plug in the hole and just protects the firing piece. In which case, I guess that's fine. That only occurred to me just now. Never mind, I'll stop talking. And last but not least, and this also has a bit of a footnote next to it, this craft does not have great EMP proofing apart from all the heavy armor it has. So you'll notice as we just do a flyby throughout the ship, there is very little in the way of surge protectors. So right here, this is heavy armor, and there is stone surrounding the AI, which is a very, very good move. It's got stone and heavy armor, so very good move there. The AI at least is well protected from EMP, but other bits. So right here, so we've got heavy armor touching. Where is it? There we go. So what I'm hovering over right here is a heavy armor beam. Let's do this. And shoot. So we've got lots of heavy armor touching metal, which means that massive EMP jolts will start to compromise the structural integrity of this craft. So if up against something in its own weight class, so roughly 30,000 blocks, then why is that thing missing? Oh, I removed some blocks. But, and around that cost, if something is using a lot of EMP, this craft will be in trouble. So yeah, but that's about it for the Daybreaker. So overall, I do like this craft. The building is solid. The construction is overall pretty good. The armor scheme is, well, excessive and expensive, but it works pretty well. This thing can take a real beating. The guns need some optimization. I would actually remove these entirely because they're not that useful. But yeah, like there's just little tweaks here and there, like mostly stuff to do with menus, like turret restrictions and the kind of shells it fires. Cut down the block count a little bit. There's a lot of internal structure that isn't needed. There's a lot of empty space in here that you could kind of squish the whole thing together a bit more, make it not quite as long, not quite as wide, not quite as empty. But aside from that, I like it. I think this is the largest ship I've ever reviewed. And I'm happy to say that it's not causing my game to lag just by existing, which some craft have. So, that's about it. This review was done in a rather timely manner. I quite like it. So, thank you, Chieftain, for submitting this, and thank you for being patient for me to reviewing it, and thank you for being accommodating for adjusting your craft in terms to fit the limits that I've set with this review series. Very good of you. Cheers. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I'll see you next time in From the Depths Subscriber Craft Review. Farewell!